welcome to The Inside Story. This week I am joined by Hil Gibb, who is an author, a business coach and pretty amazing woman. Good morning, Hil.
Good morning. I quite like that intro.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm down to just one dog today because one is still having his hair done. That's probably better for the recording because we might have wrestling otherwise. So yeah, things are good.
So you were joined by the star of the books, Dave.
Yes, Dave is here. Unfortunately, he's just got his bottom to me at the minute. Are you going to come here, Dave? Oh, he'll join us in a minute. Yes,
That's
absolute
okay.
star of the books.
So a little bit about you then. I'm going to paint a picture, if you like. So you are Cambridge educated.
Yes.
Cambridge educated. You are a former headmistress. You are a business coach, and you also do a lot of education coaching for teachers. And now you've just started writing your Ruby and Alfie series, which is a series of books for children aged 6 to 10, we say?
Yeah, I would say you could probably start reading them to the children when they're about 3, but then as they gradually become readers themselves, they then will take that reading on themselves. But I would say they're not just for the children. There's kind of some sneaky messages in there for the grown-ups too. But yeah, the idea is to get the ideas across in a really enjoyable way.
I'm going to quickly say that we might have some technical gremlins on this one, so apologies if the sound's not as brilliant, but obviously too many kids are on a PlayStation today. So what gave you the idea behind the book? The first book is all about Dave being magical and the children not getting their imagination fed from school. So where did that come from?
Well, this one here, the Alfie, Ruby Alfie and the Mother's Day card. So basically, when I was teaching very young children years ago now, too many years that I'd like to remember really, but I would spend a lot of my time making up stories myself for the children, and they involved the dogs I then had, and we were able to get lots of messages across to them through that. And it was one of the girls that I worked with who said, look, you know, can't we have some of these books as things we can share with when we're trying to explain to parents what we're trying to enable the children to do, or how to make that flow between grown-ups and children so much easier instead of being clunky and butting up against each other. We all know how we can be a bit 6s and 7s with each other. And I guess that just sat back in my mind, and then career takes off and you kind of forget about it. And then it just, middle of the night, one of those middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, aha sort of times, and it just decided it was going to get written. And up I got and just captured it all before I could forget about it. But this one about the Mother's Day card is around this fact that, you know, children are much more capable than perhaps we give them credit for. And if we just give them the scope to make choices and experiment and explore with stuff, they can create amazing things.
So you've also, before we carry on, that wasn't your first book though, was it?
No, it wasn't. I remember when we very first met and we were talking all about this Mother's Day card book, and I was asking you lots of advice because basically I'm creative. And I've got an amazing illustrator, and I managed to get a book made. But then that's only really the first part of the story. There's so much more to actually happen after that. And I am rubbish at self-promoting, and I didn't know how best or how most economically to get your book out there. So I needed someone like yourself, but somebody really straight talking, and that's exactly what you do for me. And it was like an hour and a half into the conversation, and I said, well, I think something along the lines of, well, do you think I should like mention to people that I've actually already got another book as well? And your mouth fell open and some words came out, which I believe I shouldn't really repeat on this, you know, forum. But yeah, so yes, it was Tale of Two Sydneys. Which is for young adults. So whereas the other one is for really young children, this is young adults. And again, it's trying to take some really useful information to guide us, to help us, which teenagers are very unlikely to go and research the books because they'll be dry, they won't, so to bring those learnings into a way that is easily digestible. And so this one is done in sort of a manga style, so it's more appealing to users to read.
What's the story behind that one? What's the message in that one?
Well, basically, you've got two Sydneys in there, hence A Tale of Two Sydneys. And you've got the lad Sydney, who always gets everything right. He's the one you turn to if you want to understand something. But he has no idea what to do when he doesn't know what to do, if he doesn't understand something, because that's not something he's used to. And whereas Sid, the girl, she's got a lot of qualities about her, a lot of ways of thinking that is exactly what the lad needs. But she just thinks she's a trier. Oh, she tried, but she's got great qualities. So she doesn't understand the value of the qualities she has. And he hasn't got the strategies to deal with the possibility of not getting something right all the time. And they kind of literally bump into each other, and they have this guru come and kind of lead them through it all, and some 5 different learnings that really help them see the light.
So, I mean, you had some really good feedback from, you've worked with children that have had some difficult backgrounds as part of one of the coaching things that you do. Is that with the horses?
Yeah, so that's with children that have been excluded from school. Secondary school children, and I've got a great working relationship with Bransby Horses, the welfare centre for equines, and we run a programme called Efficacy Through Equines, which really the learnings we do with them are reflected in this book. In fact, they earn this book as part of going through that course, and they learn about these lessons through the horses, would you believe? So it's a really, I never worked with children and animals, but there you go. But it's really great to see the transition from these students who feel pretty unwanted by society, I guess. Usually it's quite difficult for them, and they're struggling through their schooling, and they've got quite low self-esteem, to see how they actually go through and work with these horses and learn these learnings. It's, yeah, you need your tissues. It's quite emotional. So,
I mean, your wealth of knowledge is when it comes to children. I mean, you go from the tiny all up to the big adult children, and seem to manage them all. But your passion has gone onto the Ruby and Alfie series, so we're looking. So the first one is all about their artistic abilities and their capabilities. The second book, Don't Touch That. Am I right?
It's actually called Don't Push That Button.
Don't Push That Button, that's right. That's the second that was out. That came out, was it 2 months ago?
And it came out just as we all got locked in. So great timing all round, basically.
So you were yelling at Boris, don't touch that button.
Yeah, don't push that button. Yeah.
And this one's all about why we as parents shouldn't say don't, and what children actually hear when we say don't, which is a brilliant message, and one that I'm learning with actually the new puppy. Although he doesn't grasp don't, he grasps sit and down, out and no. We're not having that.
That's really good, because we're not using the word don't, you see. You're telling him what you do want.
The message in that completely is tell children, and I guess for ourselves as well, really, the more we say we don't do this, we don't do that, we're putting different messages into our head and also into children.
Yeah, because funnily enough, us grown-ups and children, we're all human. Just thought I'd point that out. Children are human, on the whole. And so, we all fall foul of that, and I see so much tension and misunderstanding and aggravation just through this simple thing of using this word don't, which doesn't get registered by the brain, and so we promptly do the opposite. Yeah. Or even if we do sort of register it, we don't necessarily do the thing the person wants. So again, it's all that confusion. Yeah.
So what would you suggest we say rather than don't?
Well, it's all about thinking about what you do want. So, for example, you know, don't push that button. It's Alfie that is really drawn towards the emergency button in a lift. Don't push that button. We all know what he's going to do, because let's face it, we all now want to find the button and push it. Second time round, when Dave the dog, Guru Dave, has stepped in and sorted things out, Mum is saying, you know, leave that button. Leave the button, that's for emergencies. What you can do is press the next, you know, floor that somebody wants when the next person comes in. So it's, when we're not using that word don't at all, we're saying what we actually want them to do.
Brilliant. That's good. As I say, it is good advice for us all, actually, as grown-ups as well as small children. Now, you mentioned it briefly. You've worked with an illustrator through all your books. Now, one of the things that I know is illustrators don't come cheap, and there is a reason for that. And if you get a chance to look at one of Hil's books, you'll see the artwork in it is absolutely phenomenal. So how did you meet Mole?
Well, purely by chance. It was really, really good. So I met a wonderful artist that's local to me, Laura Andrews, amazing artist. And I happened to mention to her about, at that point, it was the Tale of Two Sydneys I was wrestling with. And I mentioned to her that, oh, crikey, how am I going to find somebody, not just find somebody that's affordable, but that I know is really good. So she happened to know someone who her husband had worked with years before, and it was like, do you know what, you need to meet Mole. And I was like, sorry, what? I need to meet Mole. Okay, so that's what happened. I went down, met with Mole. It took us 4 years to realise that he is Mole and I am Hil, so we're Mole Hil. We're a bit slow on the uptake on that one, very slow. And we hit it off straight away. I think the first time I met him, I spent 6 hours there and we just chatted the whole time. We really connected. And he's an amazing illustrator, artist, and such a humble guy as well. And just, he really got it. He takes my scripts. So I do my scripts with what's actually going to be written in the book. And then next to that is almost like a stage direction, because I can totally see it all playing out in front of my face. So I give the stage direction as well. And he just reads that and says it's just so easy to pick up on what that looks like. Yeah. And so it's that really good fit. But the first thing is the trust. You've got to build the relationship and the trust, because if you get something wrong, you've got to be able to feel you can tell each other. So can I just tell you about a really good wrong thing that Mole did with Dave? It was, it would have been this one here. So it's when Dave performs his magic. He gets the magic going by scratching his ear. Of course he does, why wouldn't you? So he scratches his ear. You sort of vaguely see that with nice bright colours there. And the very first time I looked at it, I thought I couldn't put my finger on it, but there's something not right with it. And he going, yeah. I said, I love the colours, I love everything, there's just something not right. And in the end, I realised what it was. I'm a dog person, and Mole has cats. So he had the dog scratching his ear like a cat does with its front leg. But of course, the dog doesn't do that, it uses its back leg. So he was like, I'm really sorry, Mole, it just doesn't work. He was like, oh. So start that all over again. But he didn't mind, because we've got that trust, we work as a team. Yeah. And now Dave scratches with the correct leg.
So for you must really, really clearly see exactly how you want it to look. I mean, when we look at the first one, I mean, Mole must have had an absolute blast with that, because it's full of all of the great artists. So he must have had so much fun with it. But what's it like for you watching the stages? Did he send you little snippets of it as he's going along, or do you work with him? How does it work? So
we mock up, and he's kind of sketching all the time whilst we're talking through the script. And I kind of let him loose on things like you say, they're going through where they see all these different works by different artists. So rather than saying, I want a particular thing, I would say, so as they're walking to school, they see a Monet, they see a Van Gogh, they see, and so it allowed him then to, you know, take that on and make it his own a bit. When it came to things like when he first sketched Alfie and Ruby, what they were going to look like, that took an awfully long time, because he literally filled 6 sketchbooks just full of Rubies and Alfies, and 95% of them were wrong, if you know what I mean. They weren't going to work. But it was through that, you know, some people think creative is all ta-da and lovely and fluffy. It's not, it's a grind. And you've got to persist and grind your way through all these till we got it right. And what he'd got Alfie, and we're like, yep, that is totally Alfie. And then when we saw Ruby, again, there was something not quite right. I said, I can't think what it is. And then I said, no, I know what it is. He'd put a little waistline on Ruby, and she's about 5. 5-year-old little girls don't have waistlines. It was just a little tweak of the belt suddenly made her Ruby. So, you know, it's a little bit of him flying and doing his thing, and then a little bit of us negotiating and working it around in the hard graft stuff.
So, as you've said, you're pretty rubbish at marketing. So we had a long chat about the books, and after I'd stopped using those words,
and laughing at me.
We decided that we'd look at pushing out 2 SIDS the first time in order to sort of establish you, and then start talking about the Ruby and Alfie series. As I said at the beginning, you're not daft. You're incredibly well educated and have done some amazing things. What was it about self-publishing that you found so frustrating?
So it was this thing of trying to find again, it's this trust thing, finding, so you were recommended to me by someone else. And that is really key, because as an author and teaming up with Mole, I sort of feel kind of responsible that his work too is handled well. You need to be with somebody who is going to trust this thing that means so much to you, you know. And it's knowing which companies are the best to use to actually get things printed, get things out, and actually who needs to have copies of what, is all that background stuff, because it's all very well and nice doing all the creative and, oh, isn't it wonderful, we've made it, we got there. But as I said before, it's only the start of the story of your book. And that rest I had no clue about. I mean, I've got ISBN numbers and things like that, but you can just Google that, you can just get that. But it's the other stuff of who do you need to go with, what kind of lead time do you need between getting it printed, telling people it's there, you know, all those sorts of things, which I hadn't got a bloody clue about, quite frankly. You know? So I'm learning from you, but I still wouldn't trust myself completely to go off and just do it. I'm learning, but yeah.
Because it was one of the things, because obviously I do it every day. So other than 8 years ago when I was working my way through it, I'd forgotten that there is no kind of one place just to get all of the information. There is no step 1, do this, step 2, and I remember sort of looking at it thinking, why is that not there? You know, for you to be able to just sort of go, okay. I think it was the sending it off to the British Library and that side of things that isn't made very clear. And I must admit, when I started, nobody told me that either. I kind of stumbled over it. But it is, you know, it's a prerequisite you must do. So there were little things like that. And I remember as going back towards me saying to you, have you got your copies for the libraries? And you said, what copies? Yeah. And how have you done this? And the amount of time you sort of went, do what? So it was great for me to sort of refresh the things that I do day in, day out, but I know you sort of banged your head a few times and thinking, well, why is that information not there?
Yeah, and it's just, as well, when you're thinking about, they seem silly things, but they're so key. It's things like, what quality of paper am I supposed to be doing? What's the better size to do? What's the, it's all those nit and grit stuff that make a huge difference. Huge difference.
The book size was a fascinating one, wasn't it? That was the initial,
Yeah, the book size. I was literally going on to. I don't think I've got an example of the original, but when originally looking at the Mother's Day card one, it was actually sort of rectangular, and that was all fine. But because it's such a heavily illustrated book, the sheer cost of that was enormous, and it just wasn't practicable. So it's all those teething problems. But I think if I hadn't had you supporting me with that and guiding me and laughing at me as well, maybe I'd have lost my momentum for actually seeing it through, thinking, oh well, that's it, I can't make this happen, because it's also, when you're an author, it can be quite a lonely, isolating existence as well. You haven't got many to bounce ideas off. So, I think that made the difference of being able to go, right, okay, yes, it can happen. We just need to go again. Now change all the lead times, change it, and talking me through all those bits was really key.
So now that we're starting book 3, you're an old hat at it now, so it's dead easy, isn't it? Well, you don't forget what you're supposed to do at all from one book to the next, do you?
Well, as you know, I probably each time have forgotten at least 5 things that I should have learned from the time before. But gradually getting there. But I tell you now, I mean, Mole found the second book a bit more difficult because it wasn't all very hugely arty-farty. Book 3 is back to, he can go a bit bonkers with his imagination again now, and sneaky sort of preview, if you like, bit of a teaser. It does involve Martians.
Fantastic. So Ruby and Alfie in space. You've been watching Doctor Who again?
Yeah. Just briefly, space.
So lockdown's been a bit of a pain for us all, but for you, it's kind of stopped a lot of things you're doing. But prior to lockdown, you were actually almost doing the Ruby and Alfie tour in terms of taking it to schools and working with teachers. So how does that work in terms of you working with teachers?
Well, interestingly, I've had some teachers come back to me, and a couple of head teachers have actually used the books in staff meetings for staff to reflect, how are we talking with our children? What are we doing? So, wasn't a thought at all. It's sort of a but when I go in with author days,
hang on, you lost you a bit there. Go back. Sorry, just go back a little bit.
Oh, so where do you want me to go back to?
The last I got was teachers in telling them what we should be doing with children.
Oh right. So yeah. So an unintended consequence of the books has been that some head teachers have got in touch with me to say they've used the books in staff meetings as a sort of a spark to get a discussion going and reflecting on their own practice with the pupils. So who knew that, Guru Dave would be inspiring in-depth discussion and reflection. But in terms of the author days, for me, it's working with the children and the staff at the same time, and getting them to see that actually we make a lot of mistakes. So I let them see the raw mistakes that are made, and I discuss with them about the fact that, you think a book just happens, and, all that sort of thing. And with the younger ones, it's thinking about, so what else might Ruby and Alfie get up to? What other artists, can you paint like Monet, or can you do some, we do art type things. With some students, they write their own stories. So we look at how a story works. So I kind of tailor it to either which age group I'm with, or which particular thing the teachers are wanting the children to get enthused about. and then go with that.
Well, you had a really lovely story about a young girl who had struggled in class, but when you actually got her to write a story, she came out of herself.
Oh yeah, there's been a few. That one happened to be with one of the centres where the children are in a, they're being excluded and they're being taught in a smaller unit. And yeah, she'd been really struggling. She was getting very, very frustrated. And then she didn't seem to be paying attention to what we were talking about, but I thought it's okay because the others are, well, let's let her be. She was getting a bit frustrated, and then she sort of went through frustration into sort of like giving up, if you like. And then when it came to actually now write your own, she sort of sparked up about what? So you think I can write a story? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Oh, right. And it was amazing how actually she had listened to everything, because she started asking questions that related to things we talked about. So although on her face, you'd think it was a whole other thing going on, she'd been picking up on what had been said. And after break, they came back in and she just came up, she said to her teacher, said, Miss, if you tell me to do something else now, I'm not going to do it because I'm writing this story and I need to write this story. This poor teacher's getting like, oh my God. And I said, well, fortunately, we are spending all day on this. So, thank goodness for that. But it was that transition from one to the other, just because someone believed she could. And we had really in-depth discussions about story structure, developing character, looking at, the use of vocabulary, and she'd really picked up on everything.
I mean, that's brilliant. For me, I love that. I think if we can get children's imagination sparked and we can get them writing and thinking about storytelling, I love it. I wish we could do sort of more with children and just kind of inspire them. You have a little aid to helping with the younger ones when you do your essays. Can we see?
Yes, we can see him. Now, this was created by a good friend of mine. This is Puppet Dave. And yeah, so my friend found the puppet, which was totally the wrong colour, and so she worked on all sorts of different things to get him to be the right colours, but he's just fab.
He's brilliant, yeah. So how do the younger children react to that?
Oh, they just love him. They just love him. You have to spend about a good 4 minutes letting them all pet him and stroke him and him sort of be on his back and tickle his tummy and everything else. And then you get back to what you're trying to do. So he's great. He's a little bit of a distraction to start with.
Oh, that's fab. So what's happening now then? In obviously you're not able to go into the schools at the moment, or are there any plans for you to carry on with that, or what are you up to?
Yeah, well, although schools are open, obviously they're not taking visitors at the minute. But when that does come back round, obviously that'll be part of the plan. When schools first shut, on the very day they shut, at the beginning of lockdown, I was walking Dave, and I just thought, well, there must be something I can do here to help. So that day, I actually did a recording of the books, reading the books, because I thought there's all these kids going to be at home and the parents are suddenly homeschooling. What a nightmare, etc., etc. How can I help? Well, I can give people 10-15 minutes to have someone who likes reading to children, who's got this, and let them have it. So I just put it out there for people to have. And also I do quite a lot of blogging that's about how supporting parents really around our children, but all linked into the different things. Like you said, I tend to work with all people, no matter how old they are, but trying to relate it in all the time to what does that mean for our young children. So that's how I try and get out there and be of use to people, really.
Brilliant. So if a mum or dad's out there and wants to listen to the story or get hold of a copy, how can they find it?
They can just go to www.rubyandalfie.com.
And there's also some downloads, aren't there, as well, that they can do colour-ins and...
Yes, so we put out some of the illustrations from the first book. we put out as black and white, so there's things for children to colour in. There's ideas on there, so things like you could just colour them in, or you could colour them in and think, oh, so what is that person thinking? What do you think they're saying? What's happened to, to sort of start engaging more with it as well. So yeah, there's various ideas, resources, as I say, the videos there, and a pathway to actually the books themselves.
Fantastic. So if anybody wants a copy of the book, you can get it either off Hil's website, you can get it from Amazon, and I think you can order it in any bookstore. Is that right?
I think so, yes. I think so. You'd have to tell me.
Yes, you can get it at any bookstore off Amazon. So if you'd like to know more about Ruby and Alfie, do give Hil a call, or if you'd like her to bring Puppet Dave along to any event that you're doing, then please get in touch. In the meantime, Hil, thank you very much for today.
You're very welcome. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Dave slept through the whole thing.
Right, I will speak to you soon.
Okay then.